Let's move on to the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals depth chart. At quarterback, we have Kyler Murray and Colt McCoy.
Cool.
At running back, we have Chase Edmonds, James Conner, Eno Benjamin, Jonathan Ward. At wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green, Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore, their second-round pick out of Purdue, Andy Isabella, and Keyshawn Johnson. At tight end, the worst tight end group in the NFL by a long shot. Like,
I'm surprised they even have a depth chart spot for them.
If you don't pay a lot of attention, you don't even know who these people are going to be.
No.
You got Max Williams, who's the only guy you should know because he's a former second-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens.
I'll be honest. This is something that we do. We do a podcast every week, do a lot of research. He's the only name in this tight end room I even recognize.
Yeah, Darrell Daniels, Ian Bunton. Like, what kind of baseball player is this? Get him out of here.
I have no idea who any of the rest of these guys are.
When I started doing the depth chart just off memory, I'm like, oh, Dan Arnold's at tight end. And I was like,
he's in Carolina now, I think.
And then he's in Carolina. So I'm like, oh, Max Williams. No wonder they went and got all these old wide receivers, and they signed all these wide receivers because they don't have any tight ends.
And they couldn't care less.
Which makes sense because
they're all going to run 4 wide receiver sets. The tight ends won't even be on the field hardly at all.
They ran a ton of 10 personnel. Oh, my God, I forgot his name all of a sudden. The coach.
Oh. Cliff King.
Yeah, Cliff. I said one of those brain stunts.
Did you hear AJ Green's moving to tight end?
AJ Green?
You think you're cute.
Yeah, that worked out for me.
All these wide receivers moving to
so tight end. Max Williams
Kelvin
would have
Benjamin.
no benefit there. And so let's go back. Let's start at the top with a guy like Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray is somebody who's, when you talk about their running backs, even last year, they weren't really effective. People are real hot on Chase Edmonds because he had a couple games that were okay. But, I mean, Chase Edmonds is okay. He's going to have a shot to be the guy this year with James Conner, who can't stay healthy. But all their ground games were really benefited by Kyler Murray. I mean, he was the main source for there. But what's weird about Kyler, too, is when he hurt his shoulder in week 11 on that first drive when he was playing Seattle, he said he hurt it back versus Miami. But when he hurt it there, his rush attempts all of a sudden cut in half, which when you come to Kyler Murray, he doesn't have an accurate arm, but Kyler Murray's value in fantasy football comes with his legs.
Right.
Weeks 1 through 10, Kyler was quarterback 1 overall. Quarterback 1 overall, not a better quarterback out there. But from then, when he hurt his shoulder and he started cutting down his running opportunity, he was quarterback from weeks 11 through 17. He was quarterback 14 overall. So he went from quarterback 1 to quarterback 14. And what does, for me, when I look at Kyler, I'm really torn on him because he's somebody, for me, that needs to prove they can get done through the air. Like I said, he's got good accuracy. He was better in his sophomore year than his rookie year. But, I mean, his yards were 200 more. His touchdowns, 6 in air. But, I mean, his biggest fantasy boost from this past year was on the ground because he had 275 more yards and he had 7 more touchdowns rushing the ball. So, for me, this is a guy who's extremely talented. He's coming off back-to-back years of at least 64.4% completion percentage, over 3,720 yards passing, and at least 20 touchdowns, and at least 544 rushing touchdowns. He's the only quarterback to ever do something like that. But when you get quarterbacks like this that rely on their legs, and it's strictly their legs, there's a lot of risk involved. It's why I'm kind of somewhat out on Kyler Murray, because we just showed, like, he played, but if he's even banged up and with his size, they got to be even more cautious with him. So if he's banged up at all with his shoulder like he played last year, he was quarterback 14, and they're going to reduce that back and take that away from him a little bit, then he goes from being that top 3 fantasy quarterback to a regular quarterback to a Derek Carr, essentially. You know what I mean? And if you look at the price tag of a Kyler Murray and Derek Carr, it's literally night and day. So for me,
but on the flip side, we're talking about a guy that nearly, with the injury, nearly threw for 4,000 yards and nearly rushed for 1,000.
Impressive.
He could easily eclipse both of those marks this season. We could be talking about a guy that throws for 4,500 yards and rushes for 1,200.
100%.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's all about the risk versus the reward. It's do you want to go for that crazy upside or do you want to play it a little bit more safe? And that's really where it is with Kyler Murray. I don't know that it's so tough to project whether or not injuries will occur. You know, I understand what you're saying that they're going to be more cautious with him if they do.
Well, no, it's hard. Now it's not as hard to project, is more likelihood to get injured than not. And I think when you go to that scale, you start talking about quarterbacks, who's the most likely to get injured. I mean, Kyler Murray's got to be at the top of the list. Because even Lamar doesn't get hit as much as Kyler got hit.
But Kyler does a good job of eluding hits. He slides very well. He has that baseball background. I think I'm a little more confident in you that with him being able to prevent injury than some of those other guys. Because even like, the bigger, more physical running quarterbacks like the Cam Newton back in the day, even Josh Allen, like they'll bowl those guys at times if they have to. Like Kyler Murray is not trying to do that. Now, he's going to get caught off guard at times. He's going to get sacked at times. Like those things are going to happen. But I think as far as the manufactured hits, I think he does overall a good job of getting out of bounds, sliding, those kind of things when he needs to. So I think I'm a little more willing to bank on the upside because of that.
Those Russian quarterbacks have a history of not producing long term. They just do so far. And again, I try to go off of history. You know what I mean? Like what have my eyes seen? You get guys. Lamar Jackson's just a special. Kyler Murray's a really good rusher. Mm-hmm. Lamar Jackson's a special runner with the football. Sure. So for me, for Kyler Murray, I just don't think for where you have to take him and what his value is right now, I don't think that juice is worth the squeeze. There's a lot of risk because where's that risk most likely going to come and hurt you the most? It's going to come at the end of the year,
season,
right?
Sure.
And what I'm worried about, this is what they're going to do. Again, not about him producing. Like even when he's on the field, I still think he's going to produce. I think he's accurate enough, but I need to see more through the air with him to show that he could be just pass the ball as well. He's not relying on his rushing yards because if he's a little bit banged up and they're just going to hold him back from rushing, which eventually they're going to have to do with him, no matter what. That brings a little bit of a concern for me. He is under 6 foot, and that injury concern it's a big concern for me. So if I'm in a super flex league, a 1 QB league, I'm not worried about it. I could draft a guy in the second round and replace him. I'll just ride him out.
Take the upside.
But if I'm in a super flex league, which is one of the most largest growing platforms to play Dynasty fantasy football today, and most new leagues start in that format, then I would personally be looking to sell Kyler Murray at peak. And here's why. It's because Kyler Murray right now is considered a top 3 Dynasty quarterback, essentially, in Superflex, right? Like, he's arguably up there. You go Pat Mahomes, you go Josh Allen, and then more like than not, it's going to be Kyler Murray in that mix. So for me, how is he ever going to surpass peak value now? And basically what I'm looking at is like, what quarterback can I flip that I think would be equal value to that? Can I get Trevor Lawrence plus? Can I get Justin Herbert? Maybe even Justin Herbert, maybe a little plus? Can I flip him totally for a guy like Josh Allen, who I think could sustain more hits, who's gotten better every year with his accuracy? And he's
Dak Prescott.
Josh Allen's done exactly what I want Kyler Murray to do, show they could get it done with his arm. We talked about him last week. So some of those, like I still like Kyler Murray. I don't know if I love the window as much as in Dynasty. And in a Superflex league, the value of the quarterback is the length of the play, right? So if I'm someone, we talked the same thing about Lamar Jackson a couple months ago. You know what I mean? So we talked about selling him because of that same concern. So that concern's there. Again, I don't think this is a bad player. If I think that window is shorter, why wouldn't I just move to somebody who is close enough to that value, if not higher? Justin Herbert, if Justin Herbert finishes his quarterback 1 overall, it wouldn't shock me in the least. It wouldn't
surprise me.
So if I can make that move and just give me a little bit more reassurance, that's all I'm saying. Because I think Kyler Murray right now is peak value. I don't think Kyler Murray will ever pass the value he is now. If anything, I think there's other people that will pass him. Guys that are studly, like Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence out there. So that's all I'm saying. I like the player. I think he's talented. I'm worried about that consistent production. The best ability is availability.
Sure.
And
I get that.
I'm worried about Kyler Murray. So that's just how I feel about it.
So if you're concerned about him, how do you feel about these receivers then? Are you still I know you're one of the biggest DeAndre Hopkins fans, or at least were. Are you still all in on Nuke? How are you feeling about AJ Green, Rondale Moore, all of these guys?
I wasn't a huge Rondale Moore fan, but they brought him to play the slot. So, and obviously they've had some plans here for the slot, because what do? They take Rondale Moore in the second round. Before that, they took Andy Isabella in the second round. Before that, they took Christian Kirk in the second round. And those guys offer a little bit more speed, where they'll spread the field and Rondale plays more closer to the line, but they're looking for that really good slot receiver. So I do like Rondale Moore's opportunity, because there's nothing else besides him and Nuke, essentially, because I think Isabella is no fancy option whatsoever. I think Christian Kirk is trash for fantasy football. I've said that forever. Yeah. So I think they've been specifically looking for that slot receiver, and they keep investing second round picks in them. They do. So that means they're looking for something until they find it. And here we are with Rondale Moore. 3 strikes, you're out. So I'm hoping this is at least a base hit with Rondale Moore. Right. And obviously DeAndre Hopkins is somebody who I love. People were worried about that tweet. He's like, oh, this might question my NFL career. He then deleted the tweet.
He did.
What did he tweet afterwards? Y'all crazy. I plan on playing for 9 more years. That made my nipples so hard. Oh, my goodness. It's like I might have been walking around in Antarctica. You need some diamonds cut? I'm there for you because I got so excited. I had to get some duct tape around my midsection because I own so many DeAndre Hopkins shares because I think he's one of the best receivers I've ever seen.
He is great.
And what I love about DeAndre Hopkins, we've saw his ADP slip a little bit. And I think I talked about this like 4 or 5 months ago. It's like, dude, I don't know why DeAndre Hopkins keeps slipping. I mean, he's still elite. He's still 28 years old. He had 115 receptions for 1,407 yards and 6 touchdowns. He got 30% of the team's receptions last year. And who did they go out and add? AJ Green? Rondale Moore at the slot?
ADP is wide receiver 7.
And ADP wide receiver 7, which I can live with that. Like if you want to take AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson,
some of the younger
Calvin Ridley, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill over him, like Devontae Adams. I can live with that. Like I'm not arguing that. Like I would probably take Justin Jefferson possibly over him right now too. Not possibly. Him and AJ Brown over DeAndre Hopkins. I'd be really torn between CeeDee Lamb and DeAndre Hopkins because that's what I think CeeDee Lamb's going to become.
Could become
DeAndre Hopkins.
Sure.
I don't even think. I feel very confident. I busted up my crystal balls right now, and they're going to be sweet and succulent. They're going to be like, CeeDee Lamb, future wide receiver, 1 overall in Dynasty. Oh, sweet succulent balls. It's been so long. It's been so long. But so I think DeAndre Hopkins is still a high-end wide receiver 1. I think he's going to do exactly what he did last year. 115 receptions, 1,400. Actually, his numbers are going to go up because there's more games.
He has another game, and 6 touchdowns isn't a lot for somebody that's getting that many targets.
Listen to these stats. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? DeAndre Hopkins, like I said, 115 receptions. The rest of the team, 143 receptions. DeAndre Hopkins, 1,407 yards. The rest of the team, 1,477 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 6 touchdowns. The rest of the team, 9 touchdowns. When you ask me how I feel about DeAndre Hopkins, I feel like he is that receiving offense.
That's the rest of the receiving
receivers.
core.
Yeah.
Not the running backs and tight ends. But yeah, that's
there's a dip in value on there, and I'm buying.
Yeah.
I am buying. Anytime you get this value of these players, we see it all the time. These older stud muffins, right? Guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Julio hit that. AJ Green hit it, but then he hit it and he just fell flat on his face. Like he hit it. It's like,
he just couldn't get healthy. Speaking of AJ Green, resurgence year, or is this more to do about nothing?
I don't know. More. I won't put a guy of his stature. I won't just put him out the pasture yet because he's still. There's a lot of things for him to be upset about last year in Cincinnati. Just like not getting that contract extension, playing on a franchise tag. He didn't want to play on it. He got hurt again early. Didn't really want to come back as it was. So to me, maybe playing opposite of a guy like DeAndre Hopkins with Kyler Murray could be a little bit of a resurgence and kind of like one of those fake years where he's a wide receiver 3. Who else is catching balls here? Like who's going to be the main guy?
I think it is going to be a lot of DeAndre Hopkins, and I think they're going to do a lot of underneath stuff to Rondale Moore and possibly even Andy Isabella. I think they might utilize them in tandem in the slots there and do a lot of crossing patterns and things like that over the middle of the field. Utilize their speed and make up for the lack of a tight end kind of in the middle of the field there. I think they'll use those guys as more of the low ADOT guys to make plays. And especially with Kyler's mobility, I think he'll be running around the field. Those guys will get a lot of it. So I actually think Rondale Moore could have a very, very good rookie campaign just on that alone. But
I see 800-yard, like a 65, 800-yard reception year out of him.
Absolutely.
Bring that ADP up at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think overall, I'm going to kind of be – I don't know how much work they're going to get in preseason. It's hard to know with some of these veterans. But he's a guy I want to watch and see how he looks. Because as of right now, I don't remember seeing him separate well last year. I don't remember now how disinterested in the game was he. He didn't seem motivated at all. It's tough to say. But guys don't tend to get more explosive as their career goes on. With all of those injuries and just not looking like old AJ Green anymore, it's tough for me to imagine that he's going to be anything like he used to be. And if I'm Kyler Murray and I'm throwing a jump ball, I'm throwing it to DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not throwing a jump ball to AJ Green at this point.
I mean, the price, so like nobody wants to. Everybody feels the same way about AJ Green. So like it's a good dart throw. Like if you need like a wide receiver 4 right now, and you can get AJ Green for a 3rd round pick, I think people will give you AJ Green for a 3rd round pick in a second. So for 1 year if you're a contender, it's gonna be a late 3rd in 2022 draft on a dart throw wide receiver that could offer that upside for maybe a team doesn't want because listen, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball in Arizona. I don't. And I think after last year with Kyler, they're going to be a little bit more protective. I think they're going to throw the ball a ton. And I think they're going to run a ton of personnel, which will help. And Deandre Hopkins is getting all the coverage. So there's a small chance, but a chance that AJ can produce. And if I'm throwing the darts on a third round pick I can get for a receiver with some upside,
right?
Why not do it on somebody who's a potential Hall of Famer and an offense is going to throw the football a ton?
I think there's other players in that same range. I get the point. I don't hate it.
But like who's in that range?
Like go Marvin Jones. Like I would rather go after Marvin Jones over AJ Green.
That's fair. But yeah, that's fair too.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think those are the kind of guys that I would go after.
Those are few and far between. You know what I mean? Like those. That's the thing. I think you say more guys. There's very few guys that offer that.
Sterling
kind of
Shepard, I think, would be another one
around his ADP, which is like wide receiver 87. It's crazy. Van Jefferson's right around there. Rashad Perriman, Jacoby Myers.
I'll give you Rashad Perriman for
Emmanuel
AJ Green.
Sanders could be nice.
Yeah, so I'd like Emmanuel Sanders upside there in Buffalo actually over him.
Sanders,
another good dart throw. We talked about it last week.
We
another
did.
Good, like same thing, like a third round pick. Like he falls in that category. Like maybe you approach the Emmanuel Sanders owner, he says no. Maybe you approach the Marvin Jones owner, he says no. Maybe he basically just falls in that category. Is what I'm saying. Let's move on to the run game.
Yep,
shall we? Now, Kenyon Drake leaves. He leaves behind 264 touches for the Cardinals. And this is somebody where a team goes in where they had 8 draft picks. They didn't do anything on the running back front. We thought for sure the Cardinals were going to draft one of these running backs. We thought
I really did.
Travis Etienne in Arizona was going to be sexy. We thought Javonte Williams in Arizona would be great, right? We thought this was a spot for sure. 8 draft picks. They didn't draft one. Not only that, they didn't even sign an undrafted free agent at running back. They brought nobody in. And right now, the hot name in Dynasty for the running back situation is Chase Edmonds.
Yep.
I'm selling Chase Edmonds. This is a guy, I mean, he's had a few games where he was the man, right?
Right.
He only topped 100 yards in one of those games. I mean, he's had some nice fantasy football production, but all his fantasy production mostly come in the passing game. He's somebody that thrives all his fantasy production in the passing game. He had the seventh most receptions amongst running backs last season. He had 53. And he's somebody that every time he has gotten an opportunity, what has happened? He's been banged up. He's been hurt.
Sure.
Like every time Chase Edmonds was put in position
didn't you
to be
hear
the guy,
that he slimmed up and bulked up at the same time?
At this time of year,
slimmed down and bulked up?
Slimmed down and bulked up. And
he did both somehow. I don't know how.
Oh, don't make me angry. Like, okay, Hulkster.
I will say their offensive line has improved. They're being projected as just outside the top 10 according to PFF. And one of the big ones that was really surprising, the center, one of the best centers in the NFL, Rodney Hudson, when the Raiders were just cleaning house for whatever reason, they decided to clean house. Rodney Hudson ended up there. And that's a guy that's a good athletic, just one of the best run blocking centers in the game right now. So overall, I do agree. I don't think Chase Edmonds is the long-term answer.
I don't think I think he's overvalued for 2021.
I have no issue with him in 2021 because at this point, it's got to be him or James Conner. Like,
I disagree. I think it would be a situation like how Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the first 6 games, they didn't love it, and they bring in the guy like Le'Veon Bell or Todd Gurley. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they're bringing all these other old guys in. Why not bringing Todd Gurley? It wouldn't surprise me to see Todd Gurley wearing an Arizona yard. They bring anybody. They have to.
He doesn't have this team is predicated mostly on speed. Like that's the hard part. Is a lot of those old guys. That's the thing that they're missing the most is the juice that they used to have. So, I mean, sure they could potentially bring in somebody, but I think he's fine value. But it's going to be mostly a volume play. Like I think
2021 only though.
Yes,
but if I think
it's Myles Gaskin last year. It's a lot of those types of guys. Yes, they're not sexy, and yes, for Dynasty, you're not building around them. But if you're a contender, I'm fine with him being my RB3.
What are the odds of James Conner getting hurt?
Pretty high.
What are the odds of Chase Edmonds getting hurt?
Pretty decent.
Pretty decent. So I don't know where all the value is. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
But that's the case with any running back.
But these are in the upper echelon of odds of getting hurt. So I think the value's there. I think you put a nice package together with Chase Edmonds and get a nice return. Essentially,
yeah. If I'm a middle of the road or rebuilding team, absolutely.
And right now, Cam Akers the Cam Akers owner is a great person to approach. Who just lost their running back.
Sure,
they might be feeling a little bit of heat, a little bit of desperation because Cam Akers went late, so he's most likely on a contender, not a rebuilder or reloader. So I think it's a good person to approach. maybe you can do, hey, here's Chase Edmonds and my second for your 23 first. My second next year for your 23 first.
I would be fine
on those
doing that.
lines. Because what also worries me about Chase Edmonds is like, where is the scoring opportunity going to come from? Right?
Has he really been hurt that much though?
If you look back at all the games where he was the man, right? And he played.
Because he played all 16 last year and he played 13 the year before.
Not that he doesn't play, but he gets banged up. He's not as efficient, is what I'm saying. Hence,
okay.
where all those big, like you don't see a lot of consistent big games because then he's banged up. He's not as effective throughout the year because he's getting banged up. And what really hurts him is where like when you start getting the goal line experience, he's not valuable there whatsoever. I saw a stat I think from Warren Sharp that said he has no track record whatsoever inside the 5. He's got one attempt in 3 years inside the 5 because where do the odds come? It's Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray gets tons of attempts in there. It's kind of like having Josh
Allen running
Allen
around on a pass play and just
having Josh Allen inside the 5, Cam Newton inside the 5. Like, and then you would bring in James Conner there anyway. So Chase Edmonds doesn't even offer like the goal line opportunity. He doesn't offer that red zone like upside as well.
But even if he just gets, he had 53 receptions last year.
Yep.
We're going to assume a few more opportunities this year with, him more than likely being the main ball carrier.
Yeah. I think it's to be a 50-50 split with James Conner.
Okay, but then even if he's just the main pass catcher, that's James White.
Yeah,
that's,
mid-range, low-end running back 2 upside.
You need that on your fantasy contending teams.
I understand, but I think you could do better.